What is up, internet world, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're bringing the 2023 Genesis G90. If you've been watching our channel for a while, you know that we absolutely love the Genesis brand. We reviewed the G70, the G80, and finally today we have their flagship, the all-new redesigned 2023 G90. And people bought this G90 because it was such great value when competing against the Benz, the Audis, and the BMWs of the world. But today, I'm excited to tell you, they've had a price increase. Whew. Now, Genesis has always been about value, and I know this has gone up in price. However, it's still about $40,000 less than a comparable S-Class, which is a huge number. And if you haven't watched our video in the S-Class, go ahead and do so. And if you haven't subscribed, well, go ahead and do so. In the 2023 Genesis G90, the base motor is a 3.5-liter twin turbo that makes 375 horsepower and 395 pound-feet of torque. But this is the upgraded version. This has a 48-volt power helper that minimizes lag and gives me 409 horsepower and 405 pound-feet of torque. Exciting. It's supposed to go to 60 in about 4.5 seconds, so let's see how it does. So no more 5-liter, just a V6 twin turbo in different variations, electrified and not electrified with the 48 volt. So let's hit the drive mode here. We have 3 drive modes, Eco, Comfort, and Sport. And then if I hold it down, I get a 4th bonus drive mode with the Chauffeur. I'm not gonna rock that, we're gonna rock Sport. So let's hit Sport. Boom, boom, press the brake, foot on the throttle, burn some brake boost here, and off we go. It's got an 8-speed transmission, and in Sport, it's fairly aggressive. The shifts are they're more aggressive than I expect in something like this. And that's something that Genesis wants to push. They want to push something like this is more athletic. It's not as luxurious as the last generation or what they started with the Equus. This is more athletic. Now, even though there are 3 plus the 1 bonus drive mode, I would probably never drive this thing in Sport. I just feel like the shifting is a bit too hard, and it's kind of weird to drive something that weighs over 5,000 pounds that aggressively. So I put the drive mode in Comfort and just roll out. In Chauffeur, I also don't mind it. It's just that they have this weird kind of 4-wheel steering where it feels like I'm going right with my steer and the back wheels are going left, and it feels like they're 2 separate dynamics. Now, I'm not the only reviewer to talk about this, but it's fairly evident when you get in and you start turning it, you start realizing, man, that this is like not as, I don't know, programmed as well, if anything. With that said, when you put in Chauffeur mode, it does a few things, not just to make the suspension softer in the back primarily, it also adjusts the brake feel so it's not as aggressive. And then of course, your stability program is really, really tightened up, so you can't even get the back wheels to slightly spin when you're turning. So just trying to make it really, really quiet. Speaking of sound, it's a very, very windy day and it's very quiet in here because all the glass is acoustically laminated. It also has noise cancellation and a whole bunch of insulation between the engine and me. The one thing I did notice yesterday, and it really popped in my mind, was the suspension feel, and the travel was very similar to pretty much most German luxury cars. This doesn't feel any different. When I'm in it, if I close my eyes, I would not know if I was in an Audi A8 or even a Benz. It just feels like the suspension travel is identical. It's like they copied it or something. Did they? Now in the future, the G90 will definitely be electrified, just like the G80, and even though this engine is kind of underwhelming, you don't really want to hear this like engine droning noise, which is what a 3.5-liter will give you. Even though it is twin turbo, it's still not as smooth and as, you know, like you can hear the revs obviously because it's a V6, and every V6 you can hear the revs. There's no V6s that are super quiet compared to an 8 naturally aspirated. To the front. Well, you get 12 different colors on your Genesis G90. And we'll start off with the front because it has some updates from its last model because it's totally redesigned. So let's start off with the top here. So at the top you have DRLs that alternate the LEDs. Now there are 200 little microscopic lenses per little piece, so it gives you the same light output as a regular big LED headlight. So when you have your running lights on, the other 6 LEDs illuminate. And then from the bottom twin, you have these little tiny projectors that illuminate when you have your high beams on. And then moving on to the center, look how massive this grille is. It's huge. It's similar to the G70 in design, but it's more elegant, is what Genesis wants us to believe. Now, people don't like the fact they have these guys on both sides, but if you know how good this thing is on keeping itself in the center of the lane, you'd put up with it. So here's my pitch. Hyundai, Genesis, Kia, they kill it when it comes to lane centering and not touching the steering wheel. It's the best. Hands down, it is the best. So I didn't pay the $10,000 or now it's $11,000 on the Tesla to have full self-driving, that it keeps you in your lane and all that fun stuff. I have the beta version. So every 5 seconds or 10 seconds, I gotta touch the steering wheel. And it's not just touch, I have to actually turn the steering wheel. Whereas with this thing, or any Kia Hyundai Genesis product, you don't have to do anything. You just press the buttons, and every like 5 minutes, you just have to do one of these. It's so good. That is my pitch. That is it. The rest of this is amazing, there's no doubt. The color, not my preference, but at the same time, the tech is so good because everything right now with this G90 is over-the-air updates. So it's future-proofed in some respects as well. You can't see the speed, right? I guess you can see it right here.
Yeah.
So it doesn't work on a turn. That's the problem. So in this redesigned G90, you have this nice Genesis logo right on the front clamshell hood. Now you'd like to know that you can get 2 matte paints. That's pretty cool for a old man's car. So I worked at Audi for a very, very long time, and I can tell you one of the biggest pushes for us at Audi was how tight the panel gaps are. Until you see a Genesis and you realize, man, this is better than an Audi. Well, for sure, it's better than Tesla. And if you don't believe me, look how bad this is. Look at this thing. Like, you can put a cheeseburger in there. The G90 is so long. Look how long it takes me to walk to the end of this thing. So let's do some comparisons. The G80 is 118 inches long. The Audi A8 is 123 inches long. This G90 is 125 inches long. And when you get the long wheelbase, you have to add another 7 inches. That's legs for days. So if we start with the front, you have 21-inch wheels. If you get the long wheelbase, you have 20-inch wheels that look not as fancy as these. Now, this G90 has technology that reads the road in front of you, so that the air suspension knows exactly how to deal with life moving forward. But tell me what you guys think about the design of this thing. It's a little bit choppy, I think. Not the seams and all that stuff, but the coppiness of it all. Look at these door handles. Look at the Maybach. So let's talk about the doors for a minute. All 4 doors, you have buttons inside that close. That do not open, but they close. Now, I'm not a big fan of all this electrically helping business because of this. As soon as I open it up, from here on in, it's actually hard to open. It's not that easy. And closing it is hard. It's not easy. And there's been a few times that I've driven this thing, when I get out to close it, I have to press the button and I have to kind of walk around here. Now, people say that they like it, but it's because it's designed for a chauffeur. It's not designed for a guy like me. It's designed for somebody that's driven around, chauffeured around. Yeah. So to add to the chauffeurness of it all, look at the design language right here. It's very Rolls-Royce-ish. And when you move back, it's Mercedes-Benz S-Class-ish. I like it. I like that they've just copied them over the years. And now they're like, hey, we own this. We own it so much that the suspension actually changes when you're in chauffeur mode to make the passengers more comfortable. So how many mics can you fit inside this trunk? Well, compared to an S-Class, you can actually fit a little bit less, unfortunately. It's not as big, but don't worry, because the design of it is so nice. Like this trunk lid has these LEDs that go from end to end. It's beautiful. So here's a hot debate. It says premium fuel recommended. So I had this conversation about Lexus last time. You see, you can buy a Camry with a 3.5 liter that says regular fuel only. And then when you buy a Lexus with the exact same engine, it says premium fuel. So this says recommended, but this thing is supercharged and turbocharged. Twin turbocharged at that. I think it deserves premium fuel. So for the back, I do like the design, as I mentioned, not only because of these bars, but because it's hard to make something so long look wide in the back. They always get the front right, they get the side right, but the back is not always the easiest. When you stand here, you see it's kind of short, but it is wide and it's narrow and tight. It says Genesis across here. I don't like the fact that it says all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive, even though it is. At this price point, it's kind of silly to say that. Now moving down below, it does have real exhaust tips. These are real, they are crested just to match the front. That's sort of their vibe. All right, okay, all right, door, open up door. All right, check this out. I get in, I press the brake. Sick! I love that. That's the coolest feature. You get in, you press the brake, and it closes. Yes, and if I don't press the brake, I have a button here for this side and that side to close the front doors. Sick! The Maybach only had it in the back with the gesture, and you do one of these things, and then you had the button there. But cool that you can do it in the front seats. In here feels very familiar in terms of the screens, but the trim is on another level. It really depends on when you get in this thing to realize if you like it or don't, and that like first impression piece is a really big one when it comes to this forged carbon trim. When I first saw it, I thought it's some sort of weird marble texture. When you go to like pick a countertop and they give you all these choices because it's the cheapest and you're like, I don't know if I like this fake marble laminate. That's kind of what it looks like at first. And then you actually look at it closely and you realize there's some talent here. Another touch is the speakers. Because this is the top of the line model, I have 23 speakers. The base model has 15 speakers, but this 23 speaker model reminds me of the Audi A8. It pops out of the dash, and that was one of the biggest things when the A8 first came out of the new generation, like 7 years ago, and it popped out of the dash. This does the same thing. If you look at this HVAC controls, it's similar to everything they have in their brand. Very easy to touch. Silver for all the main buttons, black for all the direct HVAC buttons. It even has a touchscreen right in the center. So you have touchscreen up top, touchscreen down here, all separated by this thin, thick ideology, where it's very thin, clean HVAC vents and very thick, broad depth to it. So they're trying to have this thin, thick ideology. That's something that the Koreans believe in, having very minimalistic style, and that's what this does. Some two weird things about this dash, though, is that when it comes up, you have your brightness on your dash up here, your illumination, and on the left side, you have your trunk. It's just really odd pieces to put right in this trim, I think. Like all flagship sedans, the center console is a big part of it. This is very wide, it's long, and you can see it's a separate panel compared to the actual dash. So up top here, I can slide this back and I have two cup holders. They're not heated or cooled. Maybe at this price point, they should have done that if they want to really hit the top luxury mark. But then when you move down here to the real command center, you can see you have reverse, neutral, and drive. That is all done by this circular, fantastic knob here, where I just rotate it left and right and it goes into different gears. And then park is simply a button on top. Nice, nice touch, I like that. Next to it, I have my volume controls, my tuning, and then a fingerprint sensor so it knows who I am. And if you don't want to use the touchscreen, you can use this circular knob down here and you can rotate left and right, and then you can go through your menus by pushing down, left, right. Very, very easy to use. Not everybody wants to lift their hand up and touch the front of the dash. And then here you have your heated and cooled seats for the driver and the passenger. I find this a really weird spot only because the massage seat button is on the door panel itself, along obviously with your memory seat. But I think that having this here, whereas on the door panel, is a bit strange, or at least add the massage button down here. And here you have your 360 or surround view camera. The quality is excellent. It's pretty much the same as most of the high-end manufacturers that offer this on their cars. So this also has wireless charging in the front. Very easy to use. Take your phone, slide it in, drop it in. No matter what size of phone size you have, this is always going to be large enough. Then other things, when I'm sitting in here, it feels very opulent, very expensive. You've got this suede or Alcantara roof. I've got this stitched handle here. Everything is Napa leather. Everything feels really, really good quality. There's nothing in here that feels cheap whatsoever. Now, one of the best parts for me in this car is the seats. Now, they have this island design that Genesis talks about. They have this stitching, they crisscross, and then they're perforated obviously at the top and at the bottom. Now they also have perforations up top here. This is because it has a speaker in this headrest. I think that the seat itself is excellent. It holds me in really well. When I put it in sport, it clamps down and holds me in. When I put it in comfort, it opens up, just like a Mercedes. I like those touches. I didn't check, because it's still warm outside, I didn't check if this is heated. So if you guys know if this center armrest is heated or center console is heated, if it's really, really luxury, this might be heated, and same with the door panel armrest would be heated. I didn't see any buttons showing that that's the case, but it would be a cool touch if it was. The person that's going to enjoy this car the most is the person sitting here, because additionally, that seat goes all the way forward and the leg rest comes all the way out, so they can really technically sleep. Just like the Maybach, and just like the Maybach and the S-Class, this design of the back seat is identical. The way this trim is set is identical. I slide this back, I have two cup holders here, and then when I pull this down, I do have a cigarette lighter and a USB-C, and if I need more charging, I do have a wireless charger here, and I lift this up, and then I have two USBs as well, and in case I went somewhere that was not clean, this does have a UV light cleaner that'll disinfect all the bacteria when I put stuff inside. And then if I do want to put stuff in the back that's long, like say a golf club or a 2x4, because that's what you might want to take in this thing, you can slide it in because it does have a pass. Again, everything else is suede. When I look back here, feels very luxurious. So this is my command center. I can adjust pretty much everything when it comes to the radio, temperature, my seats, my sunshades, my lighting, everything is pretty straightforward with this. I do like that it's integrated and it's not a panel you can pull out and pass it around like it's some sort of candy. Again, radio, mute, media, all hard buttons, but also touchscreen buttons right above it. And then you have the two buttons to close the door automatically, as I mentioned earlier, but some strange things going on here. One is, how do you adjust your seat? Because on the door panel, I do have a button where this can kick out and I can recline a little bit more, and then a button to pull it all back to where it was in terms of where I'm sitting right now. But then on the side here, I do have my individual adjustments, which is fine. It just would make sense to put it back on the door along with everywhere else. You have two different areas for the seat adjustment. So if you're constantly looking here, you won't find it. Or if you're looking here, you won't find that. Unless this is the first time you got into one like me, and then you look everywhere. So one thing that's caught me off guard with the Genesis G90 and the style of car is not the car itself, but the impact it makes on people when they see it. You see, when I grew up, cars like this were kind of for old people. They weren't exactly for anybody young. And brands like Cadillac with the DTS, the DeVille, all that stuff was just pulling in older folk. But now, the youth like this kind of stuff. I've got 3 different thumbs up, and we have a film crew following us that are doing a documentary on Accelerate, and they love it. They love the fact that it's big, it's grand, it looks good. And that's something I never really expected. I expected sports cars, fun stuff, you know, aggressive vehicles, but they like it. So maybe we're turning a page when it comes to these big luxury saloons. Maybe we are, maybe we aren't. But if you had to pick one and save some money and get pretty much all the same features and the looks on the outside to be kind of different, this wouldn't be a bad choice. So I hope you guys like this video on this Genesis G90. Once again, please subscribe. We need every single sub we can get. Thanks for watching. Catch you on the next one.